Yeah, there's a lot up in the air, but there's a lot of things we can do because lots of other people are not doing enough and leaning into Brexit. So we decided quite a while ago to just recognise the fact that there's a huge infrastructure deficit here in the UK. Let's call it 300 billion. And we've put about 15 billion to work so far, largely outside of London, right across the UK, filling that gap and earning terrific returns for shareholders, but also having a big impact on society.
Yeah, and so you're running, it's interesting, your model does not exist here. Effectively, and I'm going to simplify it, overly simplify it, Nigel, because that's what we do in TV, is you take pension and insurance money and you invest it in a lot of real estate and infrastructure and construction projects. You know how much the United States has been discussing infrastructure and how much we are hurting for infrastructure. What if any, models should we learn from what you guys do?
Well, the good news is we're coming to America. We found America to be a really welcoming place for our business model, and so far so good. And I'm spending at least coming over at least once a month to see the progress that we're making. We're very encouraged by the progress. As you said, our model's quite simple. We invest principal to kickstart projects. We then fund them for their long term, and that could be 20, 30 or 40 years. The UK has an infrastructure deficit of about 300 billion. However, America are world leaders in infrastructure deficits. We reckon, and lots of others reckon, it's about 4 trillion. There's a huge opportunity, not just for our firm, but I think lots of firms around the world to help fill the gap that America has created over the last 30 or 40 years by underinvesting in its infrastructure. And the more you travel around the world, the more people should recognise it's a huge opportunity in America because this infrastructure deficit is so enormous.
Yeah, and you know, here when we talk about, Nigel, and listen, you've got a PhD from MIT, so I know you understand how sort of the U.S. mind works, which is, I think a lot of people here view infrastructure as simply a spend. They don't look at it as an investment. Maybe they don't think about it enough as a return on invested capital. How can we make money off? So when we talk about, you know, $100 billion this or $100 billion that, how can we profit from that here?
Well, I think the view that we've taken is, yes, you have to invest up front, but we're looking for sort of relatively modest, long-term secure returns for our pensioners, certainly well above inflation. And when you look at what rates have been like for the last few years, this has represented a really good return for shareholders. So we're not looking for short-term gains. We're trying to match long-term assets against long-term liabilities. Very different from banking, which relies heavily on maturity mismatching, and certainly our model is so different from banking, and it's one that society has found very useful in the past and is becoming increasingly relevant today.
So could we build a new airport in America or a new billion-dollar bridge and make money off of it?
Absolutely. I mean, the rest of the world is managing to do this. I mean, for those who've been to China, China's building about 50 new airports right now. I mean, we can hardly say we've got the right model in the UK. We've been trying to decide how we expand to Heathrow Airport for nearly 40 years so far and failed to do it. And for whatever reason, our Western democracies don't seem to be particularly well suited at the moment. However, we're copying the US model in giving much more devolved powers to mayors of our major cities. And those mayors are really having an impact right now on the UK. And so outside of London, you know, Manchester's a great example, where the airport's been completely modernised, traffic's been transformed, lots more infrastructure is going in there. And we've literally got billions committed to future development in cities and towns like Manchester across the UK. But the US can do the same. It's got the smartest people in the world, the best capitalized companies in the world, the best technology in the world. But somehow the politicians, the business people and the financiers have to work together to deliver this model. We've been very successful at that in the UK. Let's see how successful we can be in the United States.
You have to think perhaps as long-term as any CEO out there because your projects are many, many years. Maybe some of them are more than a decade. You just referenced Heathrow Airport. A lot of short-term headlines and noise out there, Nigel. When you look out, maybe it's Brexit, maybe it's trade, maybe it's something else. What's the biggest risk that you see in the near term for legal in general?
I think the near term is the trade war between China and America. I think we all recognise that trade has to be mutually beneficial to both economies, and most models that's the outcome. Clearly, the trade deficit between China and America's gotten too wide. We have to find a route to successfully resolving this issue because the economic consequences for the rest of the world are quite dire. And they are indeed the largest short-term risk that we have, not just for our business model, but I think for many other business models, because it's going to change sentiment. At the moment, the global economy is doing pretty well. China's have got strong growth. America's got outstanding growth at the moment. Why risk it by taking all of these backward steps? And that's why we were slightly encouraged by what happened in Argentina. And let's hope more of those constructive conversations happen in the future.